Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Alter Your Health podcast, your source of information and inspiration to promote the holistic transformation of your health and the health of our planet. I'm your host, Dr. Benjamin Alter. This is the podcast. Really nice to connect with you here today. And if it's your first time stopping in, welcome. And feel free to subscribe, rate, review this podcast or this video on YouTube. Really appreciate that feedback, that connection. It helps me learn and grow because it's my mission to continue up-leveling and evolving this information in a positive, uplifting direction. So thanks for that feedback. Really means a lot. And this week's episode is a great one. I was actually on John Levine's podcast, the Whole Truth podcast, a couple weeks back. I don't think the episode has been released yet, but I connected with John Levine over Instagram, and he is a holistic health coach with a fascinating story, doing incredible work, and I feel really fortunate and grateful to have a conversation this time on the Alter Your Health podcast. So we talk about something that John is passionate about, and that is what he calls the slow food movement, the antithesis of the fast food movement. And it's funny because to me, slow food really means, being really connected with the food source, making your own food from scratch, that kind of thing, not relying on, obviously processed ingredients and these sorts of things. But John reminds me of the importance of the consumption process in a slow way. And what I've called in the past kind of food hygiene, chewing your food, being grateful, and really just slowing down during that time of consumption and digestion for not only our physiological, mechanical, aspects of digestion, but for our well-being as well. Because let's face it, eating food is a time that we can connect with loved ones, connect with ourselves, and share in gratitude for the gifts that Earth provides. So it's a great conversation with John Levine. And John is, just to give a little more background on him before we dive in, he is on a mission to help his clients claim the health and happiness that is their God-given right. I wholeheartedly agree, John. And after a job in pharmaceutical sales and seeing his father die from Parkinson's and brain cancer, it was time for him to create change when it comes to true health. With all the conflicting health info in our busy world, this passionate health nut will best guide you through the storm and into clear waters. I love that, John, and I'm on board through the storm into clear waters. And so John tells his story in a little bit greater detail, and we dive into slow food and other things concerning to what it means to be really healthy in this crazy world. So enjoy this conversation with our guest, John Levine, and I'll see you on the other side. Welcome to the Alter Your Health podcast. Welcome, John Levine. Glad to have you.
Thrilled to see you again, Benjamin. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate your time, and it's good to see you. Last time you were on my podcast, now I'm on your podcast. So
yeah,
I love it.
I like this trade thing. I actually haven't done it before, so I like the idea of kind of having a conversation on your terms, on what you want to talk about, and then returning the favor. So thank you. I'm excited to dive into this conversation, of course, and I want to. We've had a couple of conversations, of course, me on your podcast, and you gave me a call when you were in Colorado. And, that being said, I feel like I'd love to get to know you a little bit more. So tell me more about who you are and how you've gotten into this kind of health wellness space and what inspired you to create your podcast and kind of get into the field of health coaching and that sort of thing.
Yeah, and it's been nice to get to know you as well. We've talked a couple times. We have a lot in common. So right back at you. You seem like a great guy, very knowledgeable. Um, my story is one of I grew up in New Jersey. I consider conventional, standard upbringing, eating the standard, unfortunately, Cheerios type stuff. But I have a passion for health and wellness. I mean, pretty simply put, I have a passion for health and wellness. I was born with a ball in my hand, playing basketball, baseball, and football. I was always out running around the house on a bike, doing something, running a marathon, doing an Ironman, doing something. And so, exercise was always a huge part of it for me growing up, being a kid. And then it became for me, what can I put in my body to help my performance? Growing up, I think like most people, it was, Gatorade. It was the stuff you see on commercials. You wanted Mike. I love basketball. I played basketball. I drank Gatorade. What's wrong with Gatorade? Gatorade is great. Well, you need Gatorade. You need these types of things. And I think the big wake up call for me, again, always being interested in health and wellness, but the big wake up call was when I was in pharmaceutical sales. I sold high blood pressure medication to over 131 doctors in South Florida. And it was a great job. I got a car. The weather was beautiful. I was single. I mean, it paid well. And it is just interesting how things happen sometimes. As I was going through it, what I saw was really disappointing. Because what I saw was something that a system that was broken and a system that wasn't working. And, the more you do something and the more you're in something, instead of speaking about it, the more action you take, the more you kind of see how things are. I don't think that there's anything wrong with doctors and it's not a doctor bashing thing for me. It's just a very, very tough system that doesn't work. And I think you and I agree, because I think you mentioned this on my podcast. It is disease management. We are treating disease and keeping people kind of sick and going along. At least that's what I saw. And I thought like the pills, the high blood pressure pills, and a lot of these pills, and in some cases, I think they're needed. But in a lot of cases, I truly believe that they are not. And I always tell this story because it was just a huge aha for me. I was filling up a cabinet with my drugs, and there was an old lady sitting in there, and she just wanted to talk. Sometimes you see some old people and they just want to get your ear, and you can't leave, right? You just want to talk to them and they want to talk to you. And she said, "What are you selling there?" And I told her the drugs. And then she kind of pointed to all the different pharmaceutical drugs that were in the cabinets, which weren't all mine. Obviously, there was stuff for diabetes and cholesterol. And she was basically saying, I'm on all of that. She's like, I'm on this, I'm on this, I'm on this. And she's like, I don't have any family anymore. And all my friends are dying, and I just don't want to be here. And I kind of thought, I'm like, who's in the room right now? I'm like, I'm in the room right now, filling up the cabinet with this lady who's sitting in a room by herself. And is it really that she has high blood pressure? Is it really that she has cholesterol problems? She does, but where does this stuff stem from? There's a root cause to the condition, and we don't treat the root cause. It becomes this quick, very stressful, go see the doctor, you're waiting in the waiting room, then you're waiting in the other room, and there's no personality, there's no care, there's no compassion. I don't want to say in all cases, because not in all cases, but I do believe that it's a very tough system. And it's not anything against the doctors. They're very well-meaning, but they don't have the time to spend with the patients, because the insurance companies say you have to see X amount of people. Well, there right there is the problem. You have to spend time with people.
Yeah.
There's no way around it. you have to understand each individual and what's going on with each individual holistically, right? So
Right.
I'm holistic, but that term gets thrown around quite a bit. To me, holistic means I have to look at Benjamin Alter and I have to really get to know you. I need to know what your needs are, what your goals are. I need to know if you have pets, what you think about pets. Are you allergic to them? I really need to get to know you. And I need to also show you positive energy. I need to show you compassion. And I need you to know that I care so that I can help you, guide you to your healing journey.
Yeah.
And again, it's a very tough system. So that's what I saw. I mean, I'm giving you a very long answer, but I'm passionate about it because that is the answer.
Well, in your answer, it's great. It's a great one because we get to know you a little bit, and we get to
Yeah.
know that, inspiration and motivation to really break free from the system. So when in that context did you leave your job in the pharmaceutical sales?
Well, it's interesting you should ask that. I left my job in pharmaceutical sales because my father was back home in New Jersey and he was diagnosed with brain cancer and almost at the same time, Parkinson's. So as I was selling pharmaceutical drugs, my dad was sick, very sick, back home in New Jersey. And I was really commuting back and forth on the weekends because I was very close with my father. And yeah, it was a crazy time. It was a crazy time, and I cannot say I wasn't there at all times with the doctors, but I wish there was a conversation at some point to say, let's look at the diet, let's look at the sleep. Maybe like there's certain foods that will reverse this. Maybe not, but let's look at that. And maybe there's certain foods, my dad would be eating ice cream, not drinking water, Diet Coke. And I mean, my God, I mean, like, and I'm not the doctor, right? So like, but I wish somebody would say, hey, that is stuff that's feeding disease. Let's eliminate that.
And we know it's hardest with our family. It's hardest with our family. We there's that boundary. What's ours to acknowledge, and how do we, influence these ones that we love? So that must have been a struggle. Yeah.
So that's it, really. I mean, and that's not it. It's a huge part. I mean, that moment in my life, already being interested in health and wellness, and then that happened. And then
So how old were you when your father was diagnosed? How old
I'm 44 now. So that was, I think I was 29.
Okay.
I was 29 when he passed away. Yeah.
So it sounds like that was really a redefining moment in your life.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So you left the job, and then what was next? I mean, were you in this kind of unknown for some period of time, it sounds like, or did you have I
wasn't I got into real estate. I have a real estate business. I flipped homes. I had a partner who was a builder. So I was in real estate for many years, and I still have in real estate investments, properties now that I manage. And I like it, and it's made me money, but that's not my passion.
Right.
That in between from when my father passed away to, recently, I really adopted a holistic lifestyle. I asked questions. I read books. I watched documentaries. I'm the type of guy that when I'm interested in something, it's like balls to the wall. Like that's it. Like I'm gonna read.
No dipping your toe in and dabbling. You're all in.
No, it was like, okay, so what's going on? What is in the food that I'm eating? How can I reverse disease? How can I be healthy? I have 3 kids. I have a beautiful wife. I need to be around. How can I make myself the healthiest person in the world? And I'm going to spare no expense. I read the China study and lots of documentaries, how animals are being treated. And the list goes on and on. And I went nuts. So, until recently, I just decided, I'm like, I told my wife, I'm like, that's enough already. Cause like, it's time to take action. I need to get into this field and become a health coach and help people. No more
Mhm.
talking about it. It's time to do something about it. And I know with my positive energy and my enthusiasm and my compassion that I can get people to the next level with their health needs by really showing that I care.
Yeah.
And
That's
by actually
that's the
shutting my mouth. I
most
got to shut my mouth
important.
too, but you got to listen. You got to listen.
Well, I think that's the most important ingredient in terms of the relationship with a client or something, or a patient or something like that, is the caring, which you spoke to in the beginning as being totally stripped and deficient from the current model. So health coaches are, it's such a phenomenal emerging field because it provides that level of caring and hearing and listening and understanding that is totally neglected in the conventional model. So there
Yeah,
will always be a place for health coaches.
I agree.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
interesting because I didn't know what one was until only a couple of years ago. And I just kept seeing the certifications and I'm always trying to figure out what's what. Like, what's a
Yeah.
health coach? What's a health coach? And what is IIN? Where's that? And then I got involved and
Oh,
I
did
saw
you
the
did you
value.
do IIN?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Oh, cool. I actually did that before medical school.
Oh, cool. See that you and
Yeah,
I have a lot in common. That's so
I
cool.
guess it was like 2010 or so.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Great program. It definitely immerses you into a lot of information, and I don't know what the curriculum is like now, but I remember being um, encouraged to experiment with my body in terms of trying on different philosophies and foods. And I remember just really loving that aspect of like really being encouraged to treat my body as a laboratory and really figure out what's best for me, because that's what it's all about, right? And
Yeah.
yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
It was very similar to your experience, and there's a lot of information, um, a lot of great information to me, just quality information where they teach also bioindividuality, which is we're all different, and that's again getting back to the need of
Hmm.
understanding someone and not just okay, here's high blood pressure pills. This is what
Totally.
John, prescribes. I have a good relationship with John. I don't want a doctor. I did not want a doctor just because they liked my personality or they got along with me to just start
Mhm.
giving out my medicine to everyone. Don't think that's the right
Yeah.
thing to do.
So before we go on to what I really am looking forward to talking to
Yeah.
you about, I want to know a little bit more about what inspired the podcast, the Whole Truth podcast, which is filled with
Yeah.
great content. Because it's not like something. I mean, it's nowadays it's pretty easy to start a podcast, as you probably know, but it's not that easy. I mean, it takes a lot of energy. And what moved you to do that? I'm just curious.
Well, yeah, it's a great question, and thank you for the question. As I was going through Integrative Institute of Nutrition for health coaching, I said, well, what am I going to do with this information? I mean, getting information is fantastic, but it's really what do you do with it? So at first, I thought I like to talk. I like to meet people and
You
engage.
do?
Yeah.
No, you're a very personable guy, and you're a perfect podcast host. So I'm not surprised that you started a podcast, but I just yeah. Tell me more about
No, thanks.
that. Yeah.
Well, and I think, so with health coaching, and I love health coaching. Health coaching is a different extreme. Health coaching, you need to keep quiet a little bit. You have to ask high mileage questions, and then you really do need to just zip it because you need to use your ears to listen and understand.
Yeah.
Being someone who likes to talk, so I can now do both. I health coach, but then I have my chance where I can get onto the podcast and really
Yeah.
yap
You
and
get your
really talk.
yapping out. You get your yapping out on the podcast, so you can actually zip it with your clients.
Yeah,
I like that.
and I felt like it was something that I could control. So I'm very passionate and very And man, I got a dishwasher that is good. I don't know if it's a dishwasher or my
Oh,
God, something's going
that's
on.
all right. I
Beep, beep,
barely
beep,
heard
beep,
that
beep,
beep
beep,
in the
beep, beep,
background.
beep, 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 beep. It's driving me nuts. But anyway, yeah, I feel like the Whole Truth podcast, and I always say the whole is HOL because it's holistic. I felt like there was so much to talk about because it's not like it's just a nutrition podcast or just a sleep podcast. There's mind, body, and soul. So there's so much to talk about, which I think is great and fantastic. But also, I can control the narrative in a way. I have health practitioners that I know that I go to. You know, my dentist. You know, that's a guy who I want to expose to the world. You know, there's certain people who I want to bring on that I know are caring, great doctors, great health experts, and I can put that out there. I want to put out really great information and inspire people because in this world that we live in now, you are just bombarded,
Oh man.
bombarded with
Yeah.
stuff. And I want to cut through the BS and give you the whole truth. And that's, you know,
Yeah.
that's the name of it, but it is the whole truth. They're real experiences. They're real people and hopefully it's, you know, inspires people to make change, lifestyle changes.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I feel honored for being part of your podcast because, I really like the idea of controlling the narrative, but not in like a negative way. I think a lot of people are controlling, and creating this kind of echo chamber where they hear what they want to hear and say what they want to say, and they're not really exposing anything beyond what's in their, in their field of vision.
Yeah.
But that's not what you're doing. Clearly, you're bringing people in to expand your field of vision, expand your understanding, it sounds like. And I think it's great. And that's kind of a similar intention here on this podcast. And I full-heartedly agree about this bombardment of information, which I think sometimes we need to put on earplugs and just say no to the screen, say no to the headlines, and
Yeah.
just really, what I always remind myself and people is we need to feel connected with the information. When we're exposed with information and it doesn't feel good, then we need to acknowledge that, and we need to maintain a relationship with information that feels good, that resonates, that uplifts, because I think that most information for most people doesn't do that. So if we can just kind of put that filter on, I think we can go good places.
Yeah, I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
You know, social media is hard. And I guess to your point, and again, I love your podcast and I love what you're doing and is again really nice. Another benefit to doing the podcasting is meeting people like yourself.
Right.
And you know, I learn every day by having guests on like yourself, and it's great. And I've taken things that you said on our show, and I
Mm.
apply them. We talked
Mm.
about mind body medicine, mind body science, and there's many things that you said that I think about and I apply.
Yeah.
And you know, the podcast, I think I don't want to push anything on anyone. And I think that's when it becomes tough, when you start pushing information.
Well, I don't think you can you? I mean, you put your voice out there, but what people do with that is up to them, it's their prerogative. Would you
Right.
agree? Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I just want to present it in a positive manner and
Oh,
say,
not in a pushy way. Right.
right. Yeah. I just want to say like, hey, I'm on with, you know, Dr. Benjamin Alter. This is going to be great. I want you to be educated. You know, I want you to be inspired. He's very knowledgeable and knows what he's talking about. And we're going to, you know, entertain a little bit as well. And you know, but if it's not for you and it's not your subject matter, then it's okay. You know, it's okay.
It's perfectly okay. If everything was for everybody, then we would be totally overwhelmed, right? We'd be constantly catching up with books to read, podcasts to listen to, movies to watch. And luckily, not everything is for everyone. So we can say no a lot of the times say yes to what we want. And yeah, that's your invitation.
Yes.
So I want to get into this slow food stuff because you brought that, you presented that as a potential thing to talk about. And
Yeah.
that, sparked my ears and eyes a little bit. And just because I've heard that term thrown around, slow food, and
Right.
I'd love to know more about what that means to you first of all, and then we can dive in and dissect and understand that on a deeper level.
Yeah. I think slow is where it's at. The older I get, the more experience I have in life, I believe more and more that slow is better.
Well, what is slow food? I mean, I know what fast food is, but I know what maybe medium food is, but what's slow food? I mean, what is this spectrum of
Yeah.
speed when we're talking about food?
Slow food is is sitting down, is being mindful of what you're doing. So the opposite of just running around trying to multitask and do a million things and scoffing food in your mouth, you're not really thinking about what you're doing with the food. So in my definition of it would be to actually sit down, look at your food, appreciate that you got that organic kale from the local garden, or you got that organic, just actually think about it for a second. And then when you eat, as crazy as this may sound, but you see these guys right here? We don't use those much anymore, but they're there for a reason. The chiclets, these chiclets, not the other chiclets, they need to be used. You have to chew your food. You have to chew your food because that's the job of the teeth. And then, while you're chewing, it's the saliva's job to, with the enzymes, just to break down the food. And there's a whole process that has to go on with digestion that we skip. It's just sucking down stuff and you throwing it in your face, and you're not giving your brain enough time to register what's going on. So slow food is about gratitude, being mindful, and there's many benefits to that. And one of the benefits is you're actually going to take in less calories. You're going to, because the slower you do it, your brain will register what's going on. Because I've heard it takes your brain 15 to 20 minutes to register what it's taking in. So think about it, if you're just throwing things into your mouth, I mean, I think everyone's done it. Like you eat something, you're so hungry, and then by the time you're done, you're like, oh.
Yeah, it just struck me. I was envisioning, the hot dog eating contest where
Oh,
people are jamming hot dogs down their throat for like 30 minutes or whatever. And
yeah.
if you were to extend that over the course of a couple hours, no one would be able to do that. It's all about speed because they've got to bypass that signal that tells them that they're full. And it just kind of struck me that, yeah, if we're
Oh,
eating slowly, then we're naturally moderating and listening to our body, and not stuffing our faces allows us to be more in tune with our natural hunger signals.
that's an excellent point. You're right.
Yeah,
I mean, those hot dog eating contests. Yeah, if you went,
the opposite of slow food, right? The antithesis.
hey,
Yeah,
if that's I'm not here to put, if you like hot dogs and you want to do the eating contest, like go for it. I don't think it's
well,
a great idea, but
yeah,
but
I mean, considering the fact that processed meat is a carcinogen, and
yeah.
I wouldn't say go for eating the hot dogs, but hey, if that's your livelihood and your passion,
Right.
go get them.
Go
Go
get
get
them.
them. And hopefully yeah, I don't know how a hot dog eating champion can balance their life, but maybe there's some way to do that with a super duper cleanse, detox, colonic. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. Those
I
are
don't know if
those
there's
are
a healthy
sight
way
to
to do
see.
it. Yeah.
Those contests, boy. But
Anyway, that's not slow food. Slow food is just slowing down. It seems like basic common sense.
it is kind of in a way, but I think it is. easier said than done. I mean, I
Oh,
think knowing is one thing and doing is another. But, I try to help people to, understand the value and the benefits of what we're talking about here, which is the slow food. So I don't have time to eat, right? I'm always on the run. Okay. So I don't have time for this, but why can't I lose weight? Well, in this scenario, if you slow down, chew, use the saliva, swallow the whole process, you're grateful. Um, you're taking in less calories because of what you just said about the brain signal. So now your brain is registering what's going on, and it's basically going to tell you, I'm full. You eat something healthy, you chew it, and the brain says, I'm good. Whereas vice versa, you're throwing it down your face and you're just eating so fast, you're not thinking about it. It doesn't have that time. It doesn't have that ability. And then you've overeaten, and then you don't feel good, and then you have indigestion and all that stuff. So the other benefit to slow food is stress reduction. And the stress reduction comes in because this is really food meditation. You're really not thinking about all the other million things that you have going on. You're thinking about and being grateful for what you have right there. And that's stress relief, because
yeah. But I've always said that gratitude is the antidote to stress. It just takes whatever's, in the past or in the future, all the worries, all the, everything, and just eliminates, dissolves. Yeah.
Yeah. So the stress reduction is also an enormous
Yeah.
impact as well regarding slow food. The other thing would be that if you can choose to get your food from local farmers.
Right, because the one time I heard about slow food, it was kind of in the context of farm to table, slowing down the manufacturing process, and
Right.
not flying food across the country and irradiating food, but more, having that more intimate connection, which, gosh, yeah, we have for the most part lost it.
Yeah, we have. But you know what? You and I together doing, good work like this, I think it's our job to help people get it back. And that's, why we're doing what we're doing, right? So
Yeah.
to help educate. Yeah, I think, when you have the slow food, in my mind, you're helping the local farmers, you're supporting them, and it's real food that's coming from the area, but also you're maintaining the nutrients. Whereas, like, if you have something, outside, your home in Colorado, maybe it's 10 miles, 50 miles, but it's local. Instead of having it shipped across the country and taking days or weeks.
Or, asparagus from, Brazil or whatever,
Yeah.
in the wintertime. Yeah. We're totally,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm as guilty as the rest of us. I only in the last few years really got to know really what seasonal food is, because, we're so accustomed to
Yeah.
getting an apple in the middle of, the opposite of what apple season is, or getting asparagus in the wintertime, or getting berries in the wintertime.
Yeah.
We're just so accustomed to having everything at our fingertips.
I know.
It is a luxury. And I'm, as, like I said, as guilty as the rest of them for sometimes choosing to indulge in these things that are so not local and not seasonal. But I think just having the awareness of, like, really what is going into getting that, those berries onto the shelf in the grocery market
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
dead of winter, like how does that happen? And just having that kind of curiosity can kind of be the first kind of inspiration to slow someone's food consumption down.
And I'm guilty of it too. I love berries. Love them. And I love apples. I'm on an apple kick these days, and there's no apples growing in New Jersey right now.
Not right now.
There's no berries growing in New Jersey right now. But I eat them. I eat the apples. I eat the berries.
No.
But there's a lot of value, though, to, again, having that awareness and, what's local. It's a big deal because the nutrients are still intact. when it's local. And it can be tough depending on the climate and what's available, but it's part of the equation.
Yeah, when you say the nutrients are still intact, could you speak a little bit more as to what you mean by that, what that means, which nutrients and how do they become disintact, or how do they lose, how are they lost in more conventional growing operations?
Well, I think like, so if in my mind, when you have organic produce and it's not sprayed, it's not, there's no wax on there. It's not, the apple has, I'll use an apple as an example. There's no wax on it to make it look nice and shiny. There's no, red coloring to make it look more red. There's no pesticides that get the bugs away. Once that stuff is picked, I mean, it's ready to eat. And the nutrients are at its peak at that point. And just like anything, over time, and to me, it becomes a time thing, that you'll lose the nutrients. I don't know that I can get into it,
Yeah.
scientifically, like how exactly the nutrients get lost. But, if you don't eat something that's organic, after a while, it will, oxygen, like the oxygen will get to it, and those nutrients will be lost.
Well, it did just, strike me that a lot of the apples that are in the grocery market were picked 6 months ago or whatever, like, and they've got I remember learning about, they've got really advanced technology that allows them to take all the oxygen out of the environment, keep it at the perfect temperature so that apples are actually able to stay like fresh for quite some time. But the freshness, they're crisp, they taste good, but you got to believe that a lot of those nutrients are just, they've got a half-life to them, and they are, it's not the same as taking the apple off the tree and biting into it. It's not that, you got to believe that it's not the same nutrients on, maybe a micronutrient level. I haven't looked into any of that, but it just makes common sense to me that once you pick a food, it there's a half-life to the life and vitality, and at least on an energetic level, right? Maybe not on a physical macro or micronutrient level, but the energy of that food is just kind of deteriorating despite how fresh it might taste.
That's amazing. You just used that perfect word, energy. They're doing a lot of interesting things with food these days, to your point and what you just talked about. And I don't know specifically how that works and how it doesn't work, but I'm old school. And when I say I'm old school, I think nature's the boss. I think nature is
with nature.
Yeah, I think nature doesn't make mistakes. Nature is perfect. There's going to be things that work well in our body. There's going to be things that, if you eat a poisonous mushroom, you're in trouble. And so I always go back personally to nature. And if nature made it, I put it in my body.
Except for the poisonous mushroom.
Not the poisonous mushroom. Not the poisonous mushroom. Not there. Yeah. Listen, nature. There's some things in nature you don't want to mess with. The poisonous mushroom. There's a lot of those.
And on that note, nature being the boss. As we advance technologies with, fertilizers and pesticides and herbicides, and even like I was talking about the systems that strip the oxygen away so that apples stay fresh longer, and or even refrigerators, something as primitive as a refrigerator. The more we use and rely on these kind of things in the food production process, the further we are from nature. And obviously we don't have the luxury of going out and picking all of our food and making this big salad and picking apples off the tree and picking berries down the street. But the more we're able to do that, the more we're connected with nature. So what I'm hearing you say is or what it's coming to me is like whatever small step we can take in the direction of reconnecting with nature, that's really the goal. And that's like slowing it down in terms of this slow food movement. Would you agree? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Yeah, it's hard to do all the steps, but there's some things that you could do. It's not always easy. I want to make sure that I'm conscious of how hard it is, because I'm
Yeah.
in the fray as well. And especially, listen, Benjamin, I live in New Jersey, and I'm not too far from New York, and we're crazy people. This is a big rat. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's really busy.
Yeah.
And you go out to Colorado, and you go out to other areas where people are more chill, and it seems healthier, quite frankly. And there's time, and it's tough when you're in the thick of it. But and I talk about it with my wife all the time, and it's just sometimes we just need to just chill out. But yeah, if you can incorporate some of these things, you don't have to do all of them, but it will certainly help. And no matter where you are, you can and have the ability to say, I'm going to block off some time to eat breakfast or lunch. I'm going to just sit down. If you're outside, find a bench. If you're inside, find a chair, and put the phone away, put everything away, put your Apple Watch away, and focus on the food. Think about it. Be grateful that you're where you are, in a park, on a bench, wherever it may be, and chew your food, and chew it slowly. Chew it 30 times, and let your body, absorb the energy. As you said, absorb the energy. Let your brain recognize what's going on. And you'll be better off for it, because it's twofold. You're not going to overeat, so you're taking in less calories, and it's the stress reduction. So I think the big takeaway would be is if you could do that, you've just nailed it. You're eating healthy food, hopefully fruits and vegetables. You're not going to overeat this stuff, and it's the stress reduction at the same time.
Well, and tying the loop, that you're sharing, when our stress is reduced, when we're activating, the parasympathetic digestion aspect of the nervous system, we're actually able to absorb the nutrients in the food. I think a lot of people are jamming food in their mouth, and it's we're not getting anything out of that food because our digestive capacities are not activated, because we're running around like chickens with our heads cut off half the time. So slowing down not only means like really being mindful, but on the physiological level, it means actually healing. It means actually getting the nutrients from the foods, because we always say we are what we eat, but more accurately, we are what we absorb and what we assimilate into our bodies.
That's interesting. I haven't thought about that. You're right. You have to actually, nutrients are one thing, but absorbing them and actually utilizing them, that's a whole nother ballgame. And you're right. If you're not in the right frame of mind, it actually doesn't get absorbed. So, and you made also an excellent point earlier about energy, because I believe, the earth has incredible energy. And in my mind, slow food is also, yes, the local food. And when you pick it, it's, yes, it has the nutrients intact and they're ready to go, but it's also the energy. You're absolutely right. It's just, I forgot about that. It's also the energy from that plant, the energy from the earth that you're taking.
Oh my gosh.
It's a big deal.
I one of the things that gives me so much life and health, I believe, is walking in nature and foraging and putting food directly from plants directly into my mouth. There is nothing that can, and I think it speaks to the energetics. I don't think that there's any special micronutrients or vitamins that are in these wild foods. I think it's the aliveness, just the simple aliveness and the wildness. And I think that maybe it also has to do with, human beings have historically been, foragers, really. A lot of people say hunters and gatherers. I think more gatherers and foragers. I think hunting was kind of a last resort. Personally, I'm not a hunter, at least, but I think that
I'm not either. I agree with you.
I think, you know, getting out, and even if it's foraging on your patio garden and just like picking food, putting it in your mouth, that direct connection with the earth, I think, is just such a vital component to being a human being. And so few people, you know, engage in that direct connection with nature. And I think I know it just gives me so much life, like I said, to walk in nature and find wild food, which, you know, don't eat the poisonous mushroom, but there, but the
Right.
earth is abundant, thriving, you know, with life, and it's for, and, you know, we're part of that. um
I could not agree more.
yeah, I love the message of slowing down, and gratitude, I believe, is really, like I said, kind of the direct, you know, embodiment of that. And beyond what we've already put out there, I'm curious if you have any kind of real concrete kind of go-to examples of how people can take action, you know, maybe growing a garden, or, you know, maybe that's a little bit too extreme, but what are some like baby steps that someone can take to slow down their
Yeah.
consumption and be more mindful, like we were talking about?
Yeah, I think growing a garden, if you had, I think growing a garden is extremely valuable. I need to practice what I preach, because I've never grown a garden a day in my life until a year ago. And I decided that there's enormous value in it, in just actually being out there in nature, getting your hands dirty, and feeling that energy of the earth. And then the reward of eating the fruits and vegetables, mainly vegetables in my case, it's rewarding. It's a little bit of a struggle and it's work, but we're meant to struggle. We're meant to be out there we're kind of meant to be, in my mind, where you're kind of meant to be out there in a garden. In your mind, like foraging, that's really what you're doing. You're foraging. You're working hard for the vegetables, and then when you get those vegetables, you realize, especially an organic garden, like you realize this is not easy, and you are really, really thankful for the food that you get. I mean, I was. So to answer your question, I think a small garden, start small. It doesn't have to be this some huge, enormous garden. Get some good organic soil and start some gardening, and you'll see how valuable it is to your health. And if you don't want to do that, there's local CSAs. So I think no matter where you are, you can look at local CSAs. Those are cooperative programs where people share gardens in the community.
Yeah, community supported agriculture.
Right.
Great system. Makes a lot of
Right.
sense. That's like, you know,
Yeah.
another thing that you're kind of bringing up in that is the togetherness aspect. It's like, we're not meant to be individual human beings running around fending for ourselves. We're meant to come together in all of this.
Absolutely. So I would start a small little garden. That's a huge benefit. But to your point, it may even be even more valuable. Maybe even more valuable to join a CSA because of that community involvement. So not only do you have a garden maybe close to your house, and they're all over the place, you can look them up. But now you have a togetherness. Yeah, you're part of a community doing it together. Hey, how's your kale growing? Mine's not doing so well. You're being social. You're out there with
Yeah.
people. There's so much value to it.
Yeah, I like the idea of, if you grow basil and cilantro and someone else is growing tomatoes and kale, you trade it up, and
Yeah.
you make yourself a real hearty salad, but with the cooperation of that. You had mentioned looking up CSAs. I'm curious if there's like a resource website for finding CSAs in the country, in the world.
I
Is
don't
that
know of a local. I don't know.
okay? Yeah.
There's so many. I would Google local CSAs near me.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I was, you know,
Do
kind of thinking as well. I didn't
you
know
know
if
of
there
one?
was
I don't know.
no, I thought maybe you knew of a specific website that was like a, library of
I
CSAs,
don't.
but yeah.
I mean, there's so much. I mean, that gets back to, right? Like there's so much out there. Like there's probably 5 million different CSA websites. But yeah, they're around, and I would Google CSAs near me
Mhm.
and check them out. Get out there in
Awesome.
nature, slow it down.
Slow it down. Well, gosh, I feel like that, this topic is so important. And I think we all know it. I think we all can resonate and connect with this level of information. And just because it's like common sense, and it's that connection with nature is common sense. And we know deeply, intuitively, that it's going to benefit our health and our well-being. But I think that people have so many excuses as to why they can't slow down, why maybe on the weekends I'll slow down, whatever it might be. So what
Yeah.
would you say to someone who's got, listening to this and has some excuse bubbling up inside of them, but I don't have time for that. Like, what would your response to someone like that be? Because I trust that there are 95% of people who have that kind of feeling. And sometimes I do as well. Like, gosh, do I have time for
Yeah.
this?
Yeah. Well, my response is you pay the price for speed. I believe that you pay the price for speed. So if your mindset is one of I don't have time to do all this stuff, and I have to eat fast and I have to do things fast, we are not meant. My belief is that we are not meant, human beings, to have things right at our fingertips. We are meant to struggle for our food. We are meant to be out in nature. So if you pay for it, you in the end, your time will be spent. Unfortunately, this is going to be very harsh, but I believe your time, if you have the fast-paced mentality of fast food and fast medicine, you're going to be spending time in the hospital, and that's where your time is going to be. It's not going to be with your family. It's not going to be out in a local CSA. It's going to be in a hospital bed. And then at that point, you're going to look at it and you say, well, maybe I should have had time to slow down. Maybe I should have been grateful. Maybe that's a very rough way of going about what I'm saying, but you pay for it. You pay for that time. There's always a price. The benefits of the slow eating are enormous. You're getting back to your brain, recognizing what's going on, and the stress reduction. So what you're doing is you're getting the nutrients, you're slowing down, you're being grateful, but you're spending time with your family and friends as a healthy and happy individual. It's quality time, and these steps will provide you that. The other way around, if you want to be Cookie Monster and like it leads to problems. That's where you'll spend your time. Unfortunately, I know that's a very. I wish I could sugarcoat it a little bit better than that,
It's
but
okay. Please don't. No,
I
no
believe that.
sugarcoating. Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
only
I'm,
fruit sugar.
I'm
Only
with you.
fruit sugar
Yeah.
coating.
Maybe a maple glaze, no,
Right.
but, um, yeah, I wholeheartedly agree that, these are the laws of nature that we're dealing with.
Yeah.
There's no shortcuts. And
No.
when we speed up in one place, yeah, it shows up somewhere else. And, I think one thing that you're also speaking to, which I wholeheartedly agree 100%, is the enjoyment factor. And it's impossible to sustain any sort of practice or, habit in our life if we don't enjoy it. So figuring out ways to enjoy slowing down, I believe, is really a crucial part of it. Because if it's a chore, then why the heck would anyone do it? But if we can realize that slowing down not only is a benefit to your health, but it also provides time to enjoy life with with family, with friends, with loved ones, with yourself. I think that we need to connect to the enjoyment.
Yeah. Uh, we're on the same page, and I think that's incredible information. And
Yeah.
Yeah, it's inspiration. It's just trying to, sometimes people do know it inherently. They know a lot, some of this information, but it's inspiring them and kind of reminding them to do it, to do it.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah,
Just do it.
just do it, baby.
You just do it, baby. All right. Well, John Levine, so appreciated having this conversation with you. I think that I really liked. It's funny that I'm realizing that this topic is one that I'll tend to speed over, but I like the idea of slowing down to embrace the slow food movement, because it's valuable. It's an asset to our life, to our health. And for people to get more information on you, on the Whole Truth podcast, what's a good place to connect? I know you're on Instagram. That's how we connected, but is that your kind of platform? Or
My website is wholetruthhealth.com. That's HOL as in holistic. You can find me on all the social media, Facebook, Instagram, HOL Truth Health. You can watch the podcast, the Whole Truth podcast. There's a lot of holes going on here. The Whole Truth podcast on YouTube, on Facebook, iTunes, SoundCloud. I don't think I'm missing anything. So yeah, I'm out there. I put my hat in the ring. So I hope everyone enjoys.
I'm glad that you did, John, because you're wearing a great hat, and I think we can all benefit from being exposed to your information and your energy more. So, thank you.
Well, thank you for having me on, and I appreciate it. I love what you're doing, your work, and you've got, a brilliant mind for this stuff. And, it's been nice to actually get to know you and connect with you. So it's very enjoyable. This is, I'm lucky. I'm a lucky guy. So there's gratitude right here. It's not just for, my apples. It's gratitude for Benjamin Alter, Dr. Benjamin Alter. So thank you.
Right back at you, John. And next time you're in Colorado, you know where to find me, or you'll find where to find me.
Yeah, you're in a great spot. You're in a great spot. It is beautiful out there. So yes, we will connect for sure. And likewise, if you're in my neck of the woods in New Jersey, and believe it or not, we actually have woods. You'd be surprised.
I know that. Nature is everywhere. We have to be reminded that nature is even in the urban jungle. So
yes, it is.
Thank you so much, and be in touch, and peace and love.
Okay.
Next time.